In this part, we'll take all the thruster layers that we have created in SOPs, bring them to Solaris, and render them for the final image. Okay, so this is our network. I have laid out all the 3 different layers that we have created, and this is our main jet. So before we jump into the LOP network, I wanted to increase the resolution of this. It was fine to use 0.1 voxel size for faster feedback in the viewport. But for the final resolution, I would like to set this to a lower voxel size. So get something like 0.025. And you can see we're starting to get much sharper details. I'm going to right click, copy this parameter, and pretty much, I think I can select all of these. And then right click, paste relative reference. So this should update all of the resolutions in these other thrusters. So we're going to get much more details from this. All right, great. So let's now create a LOP network, which will be our little portal into the Solaris. So LOP network. And let's also create a quick output for this, for the engine. So I'm going to just create an out node, null, and I'm going to say out jet engine. All right, so let's jump in, and we will be bringing everything with the SOP import. So we can put a couple of these SOP import. You can also cache the thrusters here before the out. So it's just a simple file cache. For now, I'm just going to do everything in the real time, but this can speed up the performance. So the thing is, sorry, not this one, the file cache. So with the file cache, since this is not a simulation, thruster is not a simulation, it's a procedural volumetric effect, we can just turn off the simulation, and this file cache will utilize all the cores at the same time for each frame, and it will cache much faster. Okay, so you can basically cache each of these to disk, and then it will speed up things in Solaris. Okay, so let's go inside, back inside LOPNet, SOP import. First one is going to be the jet engine, and I'm going to select the SOP import, and in the SOP path, we're going to open the network node chooser, and then we have everything on top because we named it with capital out. So I'm going to choose out jet engine and accept. Okay, then we are going to copy this one. I'm going to hold Alt, click and drag, and this one is going to be plasma noise. And then let's select the plasma noise, and we will do it here. Okay. So the other way you can do this, you can open up a tree view on this side. So you can press, I believe it's Shift W. Yeah, Shift W, and then you would see basically all of your contexts as a folder structure. And for example, for the next one, SOP import, this is going to be SOP import outer. Flame outer. We can just drag and drop from here. So click, hold, drag. You can see the mouse with little arrow, and then drop here. So there you go. So we're not going to see these in the viewport until we start rendering them with proper temperature and emission. So that's something to keep in mind. We're only going to see the rocket. And let's do one last layer, which is the outer flame rings. Okay, and I'm going to close this, Shift W. Let's call this flame rings. Right, let's now merge all of this. That. Okay. So I also want to create some kind of ground for this to bounce some light. You can see there's some nice ground. We can create a quick material for it. Just something to have this thrusters in a certain environment. So it's just going to be a simple grid. So if you press tab and type grid, you can create grid right inside of Solaris. And let's just plug it in. Let's see the merge. And the grid is going to be right at the 0, 0, 0. But since we built everything from the center, I'm just going to transform it down to -3, 5, 5. I think that was the value. Yeah, and we can make it bigger, like 100. Okay, so that's our grid. You can also set up a temporary camera, so we can just set the view, the viewport how we like it, and then if you want to create a camera from this, you can click on no cam and then new camera. It will drop a new camera node here. And there we go, we have this. And then if this icon is locked, you can continue moving the camera until you like, and then check this off. So anytime you want to zoom out, go to the perspective mode, check out the thrusters from the side. You can always go and jump back to your camera view. All right, for the lighting, we're gonna use a simple dome light. And create a dome light, and we can use an HDRI as a texture. So I'm going to select, click on the file selector, and then we can go to HFS Houdini /pick HDRI. Side Effects has some built-in HDRI. So if you also want to see the thumbnails, you can right click and turn on show images. And then in the preview, I'm going to select the last one, which has the bright top. And it's like a sort of a closed environment, so let's pick that one. I'm going to make the intensity quite low, something like that. Okay, something more like this. And now let's create and assign some materials. So I'm going to create a material library. And let's jump inside. So for the thrusters, we will be creating mainly the Karma Pyro materials, just a simple temperature-based material. So press tab, type Karma Pyro material. So this one will be for plasma. Karma Pyro plasma. Let's jump in. Okay, so this is the actual shader. And the density is just going to be default. We don't have any physical smoke in there. We're just going to go to fire. I'm going to enable fire. And for this one, we're going to set the intensity. Let me see, which one is that? Plasma is 35. Yeah, so we can start with 35 for now. Okay, and yeah, that is it. So let's go back. Let's create another one. So one thing though, with this material, actually, yeah, let's go back. So into the plasma and the fire, we will have to replicate the ramps that we had inside of the actual thruster temperature. So if I jump back a couple of levels, we go back to LopNet and thruster engine effects. So each of these in the exhaust, it has the specific color ramp. So unfortunately, this color information is just viewable in this node. So we'll just have to replicate this ramp, which is just a simple preset. All the ramps and temperature values and also the thickness of the volume is going to translate through, but the color we will need to either bake here or we'll need to replicate the ramp. But it's much lighter to replicate the ramp in the shader. It's also going to take less space than saving an extra field. So this one is going to be plasma, I believe, and then we have this one, the exhaust, which is looking like that, and this one is actually the default. Okay, so let's go back to the LOPNet, back to material library. So for the plasma, let's double click, and then in the fire color ramp, we're going to click on the gear. You're going to use the plasma. Okay, so that's the one. And additionally, you can play with, maybe it was actually magma. Let's see. Yeah, I think magma is gonna look a bit better. So I'm gonna keep it to magma for now. Okay, so yeah, so the other thing you can do, you can play with these ranges, but I'm gonna do it later when we start rendering. Okay, so for now, we're just gonna set the color. Let's go back, Alt, click and drag. And then this one is going to be flame outer. Let's double click on this one. So for the flame outer, it's all the same since we copied that from the plasma. The only difference is going to be this one is going to have 50 in intensity, and we are going to adjust the color. So I'm going to start with the black to orange, and then I'm going to shift these. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click here. So we basically want the blacks to be in the middle, and then the orange to be on both sides, like that. And I'm going to click to expand the controls, and I'm going to shift the position of the first black to 0.1, and shift the position of the second black to 0.9. So this will exactly replicate that ramp. All right, so that is that one, and let's go back. Let's create one last, which is going to be rings. Let's double click one side. So in this one, we just want a simple black to orange ramp, and we are going to set the intensity to 75. So the rings are going to be the brightest element, as you can see in here. Okay, so let's now apply these materials. We're going to go back to the LOPNet, and I usually like to assign them with a separate node, so I'm going to put down assign material. So in the assign material, we can use the primitives to select each of these SOP imports, and then material path is going to be whatever is inside the library. So control click onto the primitive selector. You're going to get this little menu, and then we can choose. So the first one is going to be plasma noise, and okay, and then click on this material path. So remember, you have to control click on the first one to open the menu, and the second one you can also just simple click. Okay, so then we have to unroll the materials, and then we have to choose the plasma. Okay, and then let's click on plus to create another assignment. Again, control click on the selector, select the outer flame, and then click on the material, unroll, expand materials, and then choose the outer, and then one more. So let's control click. So this one is for rings, and material plus, and rings, and okay. Okay, so let's do a quick render. So I'm going to set this to Karma XPU. You can also turn off the grid, but you can already see it's working. It's looking pretty nice. So now we need to add some shader to the rocket and to the ground, and we can also make these into a light source. Okay, So let's utilize material linker for quick metallic surface for this rocket engine. So material linker. Okay. And let's go to catalog. It has a lot of material presets that ship with Houdini. It's much easier to see all of these in a folder structure. So if you click on this tree layout, you would see each of these categorized into individual folders. And then if I expand the metals, you can see all the metal presets that we have. I think aluminum was used for this render. I'm not sure how physically correct it is, so I apologize if this is not what this is made of, but it looked pretty cool. So I'm going to just click to the aluminum, hold, drag and drop it to the material list. Now you can see we have aluminum, and this material linker also would recognize any material that you created in the library, so it will be here as well. And from this UI right away, we can just drag and drop it onto the engine right away, or we can assign it through the assigned material. I actually prefer doing it still from here, so I can exactly see what's getting assigned where, and I can turn it on or off. So let's add another instance. So control click to the primitives. Let's choose the jet engine. Let's choose the aluminum, metal aluminum. Okay, and there we go. And then finally for the ground, I want to use some kind of asphalt or concrete texture. So we can still utilize the material linker. Can go to here. We can even type if we want to search for concrete. So it's going to be in the industrial. Let's open it up and we have the concrete. So click, drag and drop. And from here, I want to be able to edit this concrete once I assign it. Let's actually assign it first. So let's click on plus, and here we will assign it to the grid. And we will use the concrete. Okay. So let's render it all. But I will need to adjust the concrete. Let's make sure that we see everything. Okay, so everything is visible. Houdini VK. So in here we can select the material linker, and any material that we created here, we can right click and say edit material properties. It will create this extra node, edit concrete. Now we can adjust things like bump scale or the texture scale. So I'm going to click and use set or create, and to increase texture scale to 75, so it's tiling more times. And then I'm going to click here, set or create. I'm going to increase the bump to 50. And I think I also darkened the colors a bit. So let's select each of these. I think I just darkened this one by 1.1. Yeah, something more like that. Yeah. Okay, so let's keep it like this. So that's our concrete. All right, so let's see the final result. Now for this specific render that you can see here, I used something called tone mapping. You can enable ACES in the OCIO settings, or you can add the tone mapping later. So if we click and hold on this color correction bar, click onto color correction, you can see that there is no tone mapping. But if I set this to ACES, you can see that the colors are much more cinematic, and we can add this again in compositing, and we can further tweak the layers to look even more interesting. All right, so this is what have been done to achieve these kind of colors. So I'm going to continue working with this tone mapping. So from here, one thing that we also need to do, we will need to make sure that these are a light source. And Houdini 21 actually has the new geometry light that we're going to place here. Let me turn this to viewport. So we can assign geometry light to each of these. And whenever you're working with volumes with emissive temperature component, you need to change the API to volume light API. So I'm going to do it for every layer, and you can set a custom color, but otherwise it will just take whatever the color is coming from the material as set by this setting. So in the exposure, we're going to set it to 2.5, but feel free to make it brighter or darker. So this one, the flame outer, I'm going to set the emission to 10. And then the other one I'm going to set to, I think it's also 10. Yeah, something like that. Now, if you want these lights to affect individual components more or less, for example, if you want this light to be more visible in the specular, let's actually merge these separately first. So I'm just going to merge them separately because we might do something else here. So we have now all three of these merged. Let's give it a try. Karma XPU. So we can say that I want the light to affect the specular on the ground more. So you can actually control different components here. So you say diffuse, make it more specular. In certain scenarios it will be visible more, in certain scenarios it will be visible a bit less, but this is a pretty cool setting to increase the light bounces in a specific component. The other thing I would add is the render geometry settings, and since we have 3 different light sources at the same time, we can go to light and we can set or create the efficient emissiveness. This will, or we can set it to auto, but it can basically increase the you know, when we have a lot of different light sources, it will be handled much more efficiently. Okay, so this is something that we can add. All right, so this is this. The other thing we can do, which will add to this interesting atmospheric glow around it. So some of this glow is in comp, but I've also added a Karma fog box around it to have the light bounce inside, so as if there's like some kind of air. So let's add that. So we are going to put down Karma fog box, and I made it pretty big, so I don't have to worry about the size, and we'll just make it pretty thin with very little shadow density, otherwise it's going to be too dark. 0.05, and pretty high scattering phase, so it will have more contrast. So here's our box, and if I render with this one, okay, so if you don't want to see this kind of overlay of blue pixels, you can just turn off the display selection. Now you can see the light would actually bounce inside, and the noise would clear up pretty fast. It just takes a moment for the first time. All right, so you can see now it's cleaning up. Additionally, we can add a denoiser in here, so it will be a bit faster, but you can see this kind of nice glow that we're getting from this light, especially by adding these geometry lights. I'm also going to adjust the intensity. I'm probably going to make this HDRI less intense, so the main light source is going to be this thruster. Okay, and let's put down Karma render settings. So in here we can set this to XPU, and then in the image output filters we can just add a denoiser, so the noise will be cleared up much faster. Okay, so that is that. Okay, you can see the noise is pretty much cleared up. Okay, additionally, you can adjust these layers. For example, if you want to fade off the tip and the last ring, so it doesn't just abruptly end like that, you can see in this render, the ending is much smoother and it's basically blended with that plasma part. We can do that with additional volume operations in SOPs. So let me stop this. And we can basically jump into here. So after you cast, if you want to do certain modifications, for example, you can add volume, adjust fog. So this is a relatively new node. So with this one, you can actually fade the volume based on the bounding box. So the operation will need to be set to multiply, and then the pattern type is going to be bounding box. So you need to define the direction. You can see the direction is positive Z, so I'm going to set it to Z, and then you can do compute range. So the other thing is quite important to make sure you're operating on correct field. So density wouldn't give us anything, but if we do it on the temperature, now you can see it's actually fading it from the back, but I want the opposite. I'm going to set the bounds to 10 and then the max to 0, and I can see the end would be faded off slightly. All right, so this is what we can do here. The other one, we can probably copy this, hold Alt, click and drag. So it's going to be pretty much the same with the rings. We can probably use the same values here. I'm going to give it a bit more. I'm going to set 11.5 on that end. Yeah, so we get a bit more of those rings. And then for the plasma, well, the plasma, it was good as it is. The other thing that you would notice in this example, the flame starts, right? It kind of expands from 0 and then it goes forward. So you can do it with a simple transform. Let's just put a transform node here. So I'm going to do a quick test on this one. I'm just going to freeze it for now. So time shift. And let's just shift it. And we can now basically animate the position in scale in scale in Z and the uniform scale. Since everything is built from our origin outward, you can easily scale it like that, right? So otherwise you'll have to make sure that the pivot is set to this starting point. So let's set the scale to 0 on frame 1. I'm going to hold Alt and click to set a keyframe, and then I'm also going to reduce the uniform scale to 0.5, Alt and click. And then we can go forward, let's say 5 frames. At frame 5, the scale would be 1, hold Alt and click, and then this one would also be 1, Alt and click. So we would have an animation like that. All right, and then we can copy this exact same thing to other thrusters. I'm going to remove this time shift. So right click, actions, create reference copy. I'm going to copy it here. And then we're gonna copy this one here. Okay, so let's now jump back and let's see the pretty much final look. So Karma render settings, I believe there is another one we have to use. Actually, let's use Karma setup. So Karma setup will give us both this precompiled shaders. We can take a look at it in the other example, but for now I'm just going to close this. So let's connect this here, and in the Karma render settings, again, let's set it to XPU. I'm going to set the filter to NVIDIA Optics Denoiser, so we have relatively less noise. All right, so let's take a look. I'm going to turn off the light icon as well. All right, so you can see the fading actually works really well. It will make it the image more sharper as the render progresses. And then you can also add additional AOVs. You can add combined diffuse. You can add glossy reflection for the aluminum, and then lights and emission, combined emission, and we can add some combined volume. So once you added those, we can preview them with the help of this menu. So you can see the viewing output is currently set to color. We can set it to just diffuse or just reflection. You can set it to combined volume, which is just this volumetric component, and then the emission obviously is going to be just a thruster. And we can use this in any compositor that we like. And then we have the ground. And this is basically it. So if you want to render this to disk as a full sequence, you can set this to frame range, set it to whichever frame range you like, and then click render to disk in background. All right, so this is basically how we can create this thruster effect combined from multiple layers and render it in Solaris. Thanks for watching.